Blake Lively genuinely believed that if she entered the Met Gala, smiled for a few cameras, and posed next to Anne Hathaway, everyone would forget about the complete chaos surrounding the Justin Baldoni situation. No, young lady. The internet no longer moves in the same way as traditional Hollywood. And that's precisely what those in Blake's immediate vicinity are beginning to recognize. Because ordinary people on the internet are viewing the situation entirely differently, while traditional magazines continue to try to enhance her image and describe her as fearless and strong. To be honest, the cracks are now visible everywhere. Since this alters how many people view that settlement statement, let's discuss what insiders have to say. It appears that one of the main reasons Justin Baldoni's side agreed to that particular wording, that Blake Lively should be heard, was because Justin wanted the freedom to talk candidly about his own experience. And now that people were incensed when they first read that sentence online, it makes much more sense why it was included. Wait, after everything that came out, why are they validating her claims at all? Was a common reaction. However, people close to Justin claim that the deal was never solely about Blake. It also had to do with Justin's eventual ability to fully express his viewpoint without being silenced. To be honest, you can tell Justin's team is much more confident now than they were months ago if you watched Brian Friedman speak recently. While Blake Lively's side has become nearly silent and people are noticing it, Brian has been everywhere doing interviews, speaking with creators, appearing on shows, and speaking candidly. Now, where are Blake's lawyers? When they first started doing interviews and talking about advocating for women everywhere, where was that enthusiasm? Now, where's all that assurance? Because, let's face it, Blake's team initially pretended that this was going to be a huge movement. They promoted the idea that Blake was defending all women in the workplace and speaking out against abuse in Hollywood. Do you recall all of that? They made it sound enormous, I guess. They desired Blake to take on this role. However, as receipts, video, emails, and text messages began to surface, things began to fall apart in the public eye, and the internet stopped supporting the story. Blake and Ryan Reynolds totally underestimated that aspect. They believed they could influence public opinion in the same manner that celebrities did in the past. People would simply accept a story that is fed to a few major publications, receives favorable headlines, and is framed. However, social media completely altered the situation. Everything was altered by TikTok. Everything was altered by YouTube. Individuals began comparing timelines, examining court documents, examining interviews, identifying discrepancies, and posing queries that the mainstream media was reluctant to address. According to insiders, Justin's friends are still anxious because they don't have complete faith in Blake and Ryan Reynolds. People close to Justin seem to think Ryan in particular is always planning a new move. They believe that every agreement has a covert plan. To be honest, people can understand Justin's circle's paranoia when they recall that infamous back-to-work list Blake allegedly pushed during production. Because what appeared innocuous to the public turned into ammunition later on, according to insiders. Blake is accused of framing some agreements and boundaries in a way that, once the lawsuit erupted, supported her larger narrative. Thus, Justin's side is now concerned about the possibility that this new settlement language will be perverted in the future. People in his immediate vicinity are afraid of that. According to reports, Justin himself thinks the truth will prevail in the end, but some of his friends believe he is still far too trusting. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds appears to be unconcerned on the internet. Naturally, immediately following the release of all this information, he shares a cute selfie with Blake. He does, of course. That man has a thorough understanding of how to manage a celebrity's image. One moment, it's promoting a business. The next, it's football club content. And then, all of a sudden, there's a sweet photo of Blake. It's like, hey guys, this place is perfect. It feels extremely carefully chosen and well-planned, especially in light of the recent harsh criticism Ryan has received for allegedly getting too involved in Blake's internal conflicts. Speaking of awkward celebrity dynamics, let's talk about that picture of Anne Hathaway, because it was a topic of constant discussion on the internet. Given how contentious this whole situation has become, everyone immediately began to wonder why Anne would publicly pose with Blake at this time. But in all honesty, that's how strange Hollywood is. Even though they keep their distance behind closed doors, celebrities will smile together in public at events. Nevertheless, because Anne Hathaway has previously struggled with her public image, people found it intriguing. She is fully aware of the effects of online backlash. Thus, it attracted attention to see her standing casually next to Blake while the internet is dissecting this entire case. However, the change in media language is currently the main topic of discussion. Even media outlets that, at first, seemed to be very supportive of Blake are abruptly shifting their stance. And people took notice right away. Serious accusations and emotional framing were the main topics of earlier coverage. Suddenly, articles that previously used stronger language are now using softer language, such as harassment claims. That change is significant because it indicates that media outlets are growing much more circumspect after witnessing the gradual shift in public opinion against Blake. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds most likely believed that the Met Gala would be the big reset button. Betweens appear in pricey attire, grin for the cameras, and take a seat close to Anna Wintour, and all of a sudden, the public turns away. Instead, the internet began delving even deeper into all aspects of this case. Because the entire atmosphere shifts when people begin to focus on behavior rather than celebrity status. And that is precisely what took place in this instance. The most hilarious thing is that some magazines are still making a great effort to push this bold Blake story. Blake was described by People magazine as fearless, strong, and self-assured during her Met Gala appearance. That the Met courageous young lady. Every single facial expression from that carpet walk was being analyzed by people on the internet. The PR tactic behind it was also instantly noted by the internet. That look seemed deliberate in every way. The shy act energy, the quiet voice during interviews, and the remarks about how much I enjoy having my kids around. Blake has spent years creating a completely different public persona, so people weren't buying it. It felt very deliberate to suddenly try to come across as modest and sensitive after a significant public backlash. Then, Blake is seated at Anna Wintour's table. Because it immediately raised eyebrows, that's another topic that people frequently discuss. Many people on the internet genuinely thought Blake was not even invited at first, and had somehow used her connections to get into the event. Then, all of a sudden, rumors surfaced that she was seated by Anna herself after receiving a personal invitation from Vogue. People naturally began to wonder what kind of relationship Blake and Ryan had behind the scenes in Hollywood. Because, despite all of this controversy, some elite circles still appear willing to publicly defend them. However, things are entirely different outside of those circles. Blake was severely harassed by the New York Post following the Met Gala, essentially stated that, in light of everything that transpired, her appearance felt shameless. To be honest, that article echoed what many people on the internet have been saying for months. Many believe Blake weaponized important social discussions while pretending that the harm was insignificant when public opinion turned against her. The Met Gala appearance annoyed a lot of people because of this. Critics perceived Blake as wanting to return to the opulent lifestyle of a celebrity right away, without fully realizing how chaotic the whole situation had become. Meanwhile, the internet keeps bringing up those earlier interviews that came to light during the controversy. particularly the one in which Blake gave a clumsy response when asked about the film's domestic violence themes. Her reputation suffered greatly as a result of the interview, because viewers thought she was sarcastic and dismissive when talking about a serious subject. Apparently, brands also took notice. According to recently released communications, businesses associated with Betty Buzz and Betty Booze are reportedly becoming anxious about the criticism directed at Blake. According to reports, one executive acknowledged that retailers were keeping a careful eye on consumer responses because the bad press was undermining brand trust. According to reports, another company completely halted partnership talks due to the criticism Blake received online. And to be honest, that's when the financial situation really took off. It began to impact business relationships and ceased to be merely online rumors. What's amazing is that Blake's own team reportedly submitted some of these exchanges in an attempt to demonstrate that Justin Baldoni's purported smear campaign caused harm. But internet detractors quickly countered. They claimed that Justin's team had nothing to do with the backlash. Blake's own public conduct, interviews, and inconsistencies were the source of it. Because of this, a lot of people think her legal strategy was a complete failure. There seem to be more questions with each new piece of evidence. The problem of the erased dailies is another. People were very suspicious of that situation because the internet immediately began speculating about Blake's motivations after reports emerged that he had allegedly asked for the footage to be removed. Emails purportedly contradicting Blake's denial of requesting it later surfaced. Additionally, that was awful timing in terms of public perception. Online users instantly saw it as someone attempting to delete content that might contradict their version of events, regardless of whether it was legally significant or not. Concurrently, Justin Baldoni's online persona began to change in the other direction. Because no one fully understood what was going on, many people remained neutral or cautious in the early going. However, as more records, videos, and text messages surfaced over time, the public began to show more sympathy for Justin, particularly since he remained largely silent, in contrast to the massive media apparatuses surrounding Blake and Ryan. Since there are still rumors that Blake thinks Taylor Swift can completely mend that friendship, people are now fixated on what will happen to her next. According to sources, Blake already anticipates attending Taylor's upcoming wedding and has allegedly chosen a dress in his head for the event. However, after Taylor's name was publicly brought into this whole mess, many people believe that friendship might never fully recover. Things quickly become uncomfortable when celebrity friendships are linked to lawsuits, subpoenas, and public narratives. And just think of how awkward it would be if Ryan Reynolds and Travis Kelce ended up in the same room once more after all the internet rumors about unfollowing and distancing began to circulate. Hollywood friendships already function half the time like precarious business agreements. When legal disputes are added to the mix, everyone begins to covertly take sides. It's also hard to ignore the media divide surrounding Blake. She is still portrayed by some media outlets as a victim whose reputation was wrongfully damaged. Her credibility is being openly questioned, and inconsistencies are being pointed out by others. Additionally, readers are observing which publications appear more emotionally invested in preserving celebrity relationships than in conducting an impartial analysis of the evidence. This is why Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni were no longer the only parties involved in this case. People began to see it as yet another illustration of the covert operations of celebrity power. Public relations teams, media access, strategically positioned stories, and public image management. Nowadays, audiences are far more aware of those games than celebrities are. Furthermore, it is very challenging to restore online trust with a few red carpet appearances and well-written magazine articles once it has vanished. To be honest, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds misread the internet, which is one of the main reasons this whole situation blew up the way it did. They believed that this was still the old Hollywood system, in which influential people could subtly sway public opinion with the help of a few sympathetic reporters and glossy magazine covers. However, that is no longer how people consume information on the internet. These days, viewers can instantly share everything, review previous interviews, examine timelines, compare court documents, and watch body language clips. The backlash turns violent as soon as the public begins to perceive manipulation. That's precisely why the New York Times' abrupt rewording attracted so much attention. At first, the reporting seemed to be very pro-Blake. However, the language now seems much more circumspect and aloof. The articles are suddenly more restrained and neutral, as if they are attempting to move away from their initial emotional framing. And people notice that right away, because it seems like even major media outlets are realizing that things didn't turn out the way they had anticipated. Blake is also plagued by the perception on the internet. Even those who initially supported her are beginning to acknowledge that she seems incredibly out of touch. The true problem now is that every public appearance is seen through the prism of audiences' perceptions of someone's entitlement or performance. Critics don't see confidence when Blake enters the Met Gala with a massive, dramatic train following months of controversy. Image management is visible to them. Before the public truly forgives her, they witness someone attempting to regain her status as a celebrity royalty. Ryan Reynolds further complicates matters because his reputation is beginning to be questioned as well. Ryan had one of the safest reputations in Hollywood for many years. Funny man, endearing spouse, and endearing online persona. However, some people's perception of him was damaged by this circumstance, as critics began to perceive him as being unduly involved, controlling, and perhaps even too at ease using influence behind the scenes. People started re-examining previous interviews, exchanges, and even Ryan and Blake's public persona as this ideal, untouchable power couple after those stories began to circulate online. Because of this, every small social media action turns into a conversation. After Ryan shared Blake on his Instagram story rather than his primary feed, a discussion started. His juggling of personal family content with business and sports team promotion became a topic of discussion. Because viewers no longer regard them as mere celebrities, everything feels overly scrutinized. They consider them to be players who are in charge of optics. In all honesty, the way the internet responded to Blake's attempt to get back in touch with Taylor Swift reveals how badly her reputation was damaged. It's likely that people would have thought Taylor and Blake were inseparable a year ago. However, the majority of people now genuinely think Taylor wants to be far away. Additionally, some believe that Taylor's reputation might suffer if she ever publicly and violently embraces Blake once more. This is how toxic the online environment became. The irony of all of this is that Blake initially appeared to be certain that the public would overwhelmingly support her. People who followed the case closely were shocked by the narrative's collapse because, at first, many major publications treated Justin Baldoni almost as if he was socially guilty before the public even saw evidence from both sides. However, the conversation abruptly changed after messages and footage were made public, and contradictions began to emerge. These days, people are posing entirely different queries. The online conversation shifted from, "How could Justin do this?" to, "Wait, what actually happened here?" Furthermore, it is nearly impossible to completely eradicate that doubt once it has permeated public opinion. Even some entertainment journalists are quietly admitting that this case undermined Hollywood's established PR system. Celebrities could survive scandals for decades as long as the appropriate media continued to support them. However, that dynamic was drastically altered by independent online voices, Reddit conversations, TikTok commentary channels, and YouTube creators. Magazine offices were no longer the site of the loudest conversations. They were taking place online between common people who were comparing data in real time. Because every meticulously crafted narrative kept clashing with uncontrollable online reactions, Blake's team appeared to be growing more and more irritated throughout the entire process. Skepticism increased rather than sympathy. Rather than critics going away, more artists began addressing inconsistencies on a daily basis. And rather than going away quietly, the controversy turned into one of the most popular celebrity debates on the internet. According to reports, Justin Baldon's camp is relieved that at least a portion of the settlement enables him to eventually talk candidly about his experience. This is significant because a lot of people who are close to Justin seem to think that he remained silent longer than most people would have in the face of such intense public pressure. They believe he was unfairly portrayed before all the facts became clear. Now, everyone is wondering if Justin will ever do a big interview and finally give a direct explanation of everything. In all honesty, the internet will go crazy if that occurs because, despite the settlement, no one genuinely believes that this story is finished. Not even near. Related legal issues continue to circulate. The leaked communications, subpoenas, public relations tactics, and behind-the-scenes Hollywood politics associated with this whole mess continue to raise questions. It's also evident that the public's desire for answers has not diminished. Perhaps the most important lesson to be learned from all of this is how rapidly a celebrity's reputation can deteriorate once fans lose faith in their sincerity. Blake Lively worked for years to establish a polished image as a powerful, relatable, fashionable, and humorous person. Ryan Reynolds established himself as the most popular husband on the internet. However, things began to fall apart in public in a way that neither of them seemed ready for once people realized that there was calculation behind the branding. People no longer only see glamour when Blake smiles on a red carpet, poses in couture, or stands next to well-known celebrities. Whether Hollywood approves of the picture or not, they see controversy surrounding it.